Welcome to today's 5-minute professional learning presented by CAPITALISE Education. In today's professional learning bite, we're going to examine how we can use LEGO to support a student on the autism spectrum with receptive and expressive language difficulties. The characteristics and functional impact of students on the autism spectrum varies significantly. As the saying goes, once you have met one child on the autism spectrum, you have met one child on the autism spectrum. As such, it's really important to have a deep understanding of the characteristics of your student and the functional impact. In this professional learning bite, we're going to have a look at a student who has a restricted interest in LEGO. Our hypothetical student also has difficulties with communication, both receptive and expressive. According to Beth Saggers at the Queensland University of Technology, every person on the autism spectrum is unique and their needs will be reflected differently. For this reason, it's really important for teachers to be able to discern the characteristics of their students on the spectrum and the functional impact of those characteristics. The characteristic of our student on the autism spectrum is that they have an interest in LEGO. The functional impact is that the student doesn't want to engage in the Australian curriculum. He only wants to talk about LEGO all day. Another characteristic of our hypothetical student is that the student has difficulties with receptive and expressive language. The functional impact of this is that the student struggles to understand what he reads and has difficulty communicating his ideas in writing. So, what can we do to support this student? I love this quote. No tool is omnicompetent. There is no such thing as a master key that will unlock all doors. Rather than wielding a single tool, generalists have managed to collect and protect an entire tool shed, and they show the power of range in a hyper-specialized world. For this reason, classroom teachers need a range of tools in their tool shed. This is what I like about the Universal Design for Learning framework. It provides you a range of tools to apply during the planning, teaching, and assessment cycle to break down barriers to learning for all students. So, how can we do this in the classroom? For our hypothetical student who has a characteristic of having an interest in LEGO, which means that he doesn't want to engage in the Australian curriculum, he only wants to talk about LEGO all day, we could look at UDL checkpoint 7.2, optimizing relevance, value, and authenticity. For our hypothetical student who also has difficulties with receptive and expressive language, that means he struggles to understand what he reads and has difficulties communicating his ideas in writing, we can have a look at 3 UDL checkpoints. Checkpoint 2.1, which is clarifying vocabulary and symbols. Checkpoint 2.2, clarify syntax and structure. And checkpoint 2.3, support the decoding of text, mathematical notation, and symbols. Now that we've identified the relevant checkpoints that we could use to support our hypothetical student on this autism spectrum, we have to identify a relevant pedagogical approach that would embed these UDL checkpoints, because Universal Design for Learning is not a specific pedagogical approach. It's a way of thinking about the planning, teaching, and assessment cycle. One approach that we could take, taking into account these UDL checkpoints, is functional grammar. Before we look at the concept of functional grammar, it's important to come back to the reading-writing connection, or that idea that reading underpins writing, and if we improve reading, we also help to improve a student's writing. Functional grammar is underpinned by the simple idea that we use colours to represent the different elements of sentences. In this case, we can use colour to help understand a sentence that we read, or use the colours to represent and help us construct sentences. In functional grammar, nouns, or the who in a sentence, is represented by the red color. Verbs, or what in the sentence, is represented by green, and the objects in a sentence are represented by blue. We can then combine functional grammar with the concrete representational abstract approach to teaching that comes from mathematics to support our student on the autism spectrum who has challenges with receptive and expressive language. As our student on the autism spectrum has a restricted interest in LEGO, we're going to use pieces of LEGO in the concrete element of the functional grammar approach. Let's have a look at the following simple sentence. The dog chased the cat. Together, the student and I would read through the sentence again. The dog chased the cat. Identify the noun in the sentence and use a red colored Lego piece and place it above the noun to represent the noun in this simple sentence. We would then follow the same process again, this time putting a green Lego block above the verb. We would read through the simple sentence again, this time identifying the object in the sentence and placing a blue Lego block above the object in the sentence. Once I've modeled this for the student, we've done it collaboratively. The student would need to be able to do it independently. Once the student can identify the noun, verb, and object independently in this simple sentence, we would move on to the next sentence. We would then look at the same simple sentence again, this time with the noun, verb, object moved around. We once again identify the noun with a red Lego block, the verb with a green Lego block, and the object with a blue Lego block. I would model this for the student, then we would do it together, and I would ask the student to do this independently. Once the student can do it independently, we would move on. If the student couldn't do it independently, we'd do it again until the student can. Once our hypothetical student can complete the functional grammar activities with concrete materials independently, we move the next step of the concrete representational abstract approach, which is using color to represent the noun, verbs, and objects. It would follow the same process as with the Lego blocks. We would have the same simple sentence and we would ask the student to color in each word representing the noun, verb, or object. I would demonstrate this for the student, then we would do it together. Once the student could do it independently, we'd move on to the next sentence. Once our hypothetical student can complete the functional grammar activities with concrete materials, the Lego blocks, and representational materials, the colors, we move into the final stage, the abstract approach. This is where the teacher gives the students the colors in order of the sentence, and the students take the ideas from the previous simple sentence and place them into the colors. So red representing the noun, so the dog, the green representing the verb, chased, and the blue representing the object, the cat. Once the student can do this independently, the teacher would move around the colors of the noun, verb, and object, and then ask the student to do the process again. This time looking for the cat was chased by the dog. Once the student can do this independently, the teacher would start then adding further elements to the sentence to build the student's capacity. It is important that the concrete representational abstract approach to supporting the student is built into the functional grammar, because it's important that we start to think about developing independence in our hypothetical student. As the saying from Johns and Cooper goes, while people's individual needs will differ, the starting presumption should all be one of independence rather than dependence, with educators providing the support needed to maximize this. Thank you for listening to today's 5-minute professional learning presented by CAPITALISE Education. At CAPITALISE Education, we believe that teachers achieve a lot more in collaboration than they do in isolation. As the African proverb goes, if you want to go quickly, go alone. If you want to go far, go together.